But let's go to James Heale from the Spectator, who's on College Green, waiting patiently for us. James, a very good afternoon to you. That all went on a bit longer than we were expecting, I'm afraid. So should we start off, first of all, I suppose, with Jenrick being put up there as the man of the moment, who's telling us all that we have to change policy, we have to take a different approach. It sounds like they mean business, but do they?
Well, that's a very good question, and the reason for this, of course, is twofold. One is which is to act as a deterrent effect on the small boat crossings, but the other was also to cut down on that £6 million a day hotel bill to house the 51,000 migrants who are here. It does seem as though their sort of government is going further than previous proposals. We've actually got two sites in mind and RAF bases, but both those have got problems and local opposition. So I wait to see if they're going to be able to override those concerns and actually get to start moving some of those migrants out of those hotels and into those sites.
Yeah, and I mean, a bit of news, I suppose, he gave us was that they were hopeful that the processing has now been speeded up and they're going to be able to get rid of all of those who are currently waiting for processing of their asylum claims by the end of this year. I mean, that would suggest that not only are they going to process the ones that are already here, but all the ones that are going to come between now and then as well.
Well, yes, that's the key thing, is the backdating element of this, which means that it's going to apply for those who are coming here in future, but also to ensure that it takes effect from the point where they were proposed, so as to not encourage a sort of rush before that sort of the laws and the changes come into practice. I thought what was interesting was the new sort of East Sussex site, which was mentioned. I'm looking forward to seeing more details on that. But of course, the big thing that was floated overnight was this idea of the sort of asylum ships, of cruise ships, where you could put migrant workers on, and migrants on, and there wasn't mention of the detail in the opening statement. So I wonder perhaps if that's another sign of one of these great schemes getting floated and not actually backed up yet. Yes,
well, you do wonder, because they did an awful lot of those ships, wouldn't they, to encompass even just the numbers that arrive on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about, I think, 3,000 migrants in these different bases. I mean, that is, not even 10% of the amount who are in the country in hotels. So, I mean, again, as well as, and that's also, you've got to remember, they've got to get through the fight. I mean, one of these bases is in James Cleverley, the Foreign Secretary's constituency. The other's in Lincolnshire, where there's a huge amount of local opposition. It's the base of the dam busters, RF Scrampton. Yeah. So I think that's going to offend Tory sensibilities across the country. So it remains to be seen if they're going to have a fight with just getting 3,000 out of hotels. How about the other 47,000?
Well, exactly right. And as you say, the East Sussex mention, it's not clear whether that's a military site or a former military site or what it is, really.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of briefing overnight in all the papers today. It sort of splashes most of them. I hadn't seen the details of that one, so I think it is going to be a sort of another military site. That seems to be the kind of focus is on those MED properties. The problem is, of course, a lot of them are in key Tory constituencies.
Yes.
And the classic thing, I talk to a lot of MPs and they all say they want a solution, etc., but no one seems to actually want to host them in their constituency for perhaps understandable reasons.
Well, yeah, I don't think they're going to be very happy at election time if they've got one of those sort of camps in their constituency. But let's go back to Prime Minister's questions. We knew it would be a little bit spicy between Angela Rayner and Dominic Raab. She kicked off with a bullying kind of tirade about him, which was quite funny. But then he came back with an even better zinger, really.
Yes, I mean, anti-social behaviour week, I mean, you couldn't ask for... It was served upon a plate for her, and she said that, accused him basically being a thug, and he came back with a great rejoinder, which was, I've never called anyone scum. So a great response, and the Tory benches were cheering at that. Probably the standout line of this PMQs. And then, of course, Rayner swiftly moved on because, for all the sort of high talk, she is actually a bit of a sort of Prescott to Starmer's Blair, likes to be a bit of a sort of bully boy, and she was in there sort of kicking it with her high heels and talking about, ineffective sentencing and failed prosecutions as well on sexual violence and issues around serious crime. And really, I think, Raab did his best against that, tried to talk about the pandemic, but it's very difficult because, it's something that the Tories have a weak spot on, is the funding of the justice system. Yeah,
it is very difficult. Also, the amount of money recovered from that fraudulent scheme that many people took advantage of by borrowing money from the government they never bothered giving back, and they never even really had a company to borrow it with in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of Labour's key points. They want to be seen as sort of fiscally credible, safe with your money, and so they've really been trying to go in after what's been spent in the COVID loans, the bounce-back loans, and Rachel Reeves likes to sort of portray herself as the kind of Iron Shadow Chancellor. But the Tories have a good response to that, which is that, Labour was screaming at us in those early days of the pandemic to give out this money to stop businesses going under. So I think overall it's probably a score draw, but, I always really enjoy watching the deputy PMQs, and you have to wonder, why do we have to have Sunak and Starmer back on that?
Yes, I know. I always find it far more entertaining, but there we are. James, thank you very much indeed. James Heale there from the Spectator, live for us on College Green, watching us as we were watching the Deputy Prime Minister's questions.